some of the things that we have by being in the BRS. We just went through and we talked about the history that got us to where we are. Some of the things that we have by being in a union that people that aren't in unions have is higher wages. We make more money than people make doing our jobs in industries that don't have unions. We have better health benefits than they have. Even though that we wish that we could have even higher wages and better health benefits, at the end of the day, it's the railroads that are the ones that are trying to say that we're not worth that much. Okay, but in general, by being in a union, we have higher wages, we have health benefits. We have vacation time. We have a grievance procedure. What a grievance procedure means is if you're not in a union, you're what's called an at-will employee, which means that you can be fired for any minute, at any moment, for any reason. They can not like the color of your skin. They can not like a shirt that you wear. They can not like a sports team that you root for, and you could be terminated for it. It's called being at will. If you're in a labor organization, they have to provide this thing called just cause. And under most of our agreements, you have to have an investigation to prove that you've done something wrong. And your case can be brought before an arbitrator, and you can have an independent third party to decide whether or not that termination or your firing was warranted. That's one of the things that kind of came under the Railway Labor Act, that we were able to do that. But that's the difference between being an at-will employee and being an employee that has to have just cause before you're terminated. So the next part we're going to get into is a labor agreement. I'm not sure if everybody realizes that we work under a labor agreement, but labor agreements can be really thick and they can be complicated, just like a set of blueprints for an interlocking, or something complex. But at the end of the day, you break it down to what the most simplest part of it is. In an interlocking or in something complicated, it breaks down for signalmen into a track circuit. In the agreement, it breaks down into these key things. The first one is your scope rule. Okay, the scope rule is what happened. We just talked about forming unions and we talked about our labor history. So when the signalmen became a union, they came in and we formed a union, we signed our A cards, we became a union, and we went to the company and said, hey, we're signalmen. This is our work. This is our stuff. Nobody else can do it. The track department can't do it. You can't use a contractor. You can't bring an engineer down off a train. This is our work. We do it. Okay? So the railroad says, oh man, we have to have assigned a signalman to do all this work. So we're going to create these things called jobs that these guys can work to do the stuff that you're supposed to do. Well, it wouldn't really be fair for them to assign the good jobs to whoever they wanted. So we have the second most important rule, which is seniority. So essentially, you use your seniority to bid the job that does your stuff. You use your seniority to bid the job that does your stuff. And then probably one of the third most important rule, there's overtime. Everybody seems to like overtime. Most of our agreements have it. That's how you make your extra money. So most guys use their seniority to bid the job that does your stuff in the scope rule that results in overtime. And then that grievance procedure that we spoke about earlier, that's not just for being at-will employees. That also means that if you use your seniority to bid the job that does your scope work that results in overtime, and they assign it to somebody else, then you can use a grievance procedure to get what's owed to you, to get your money back. And that's what makes us different than a lot of other labor organizations, because when we do that, we don't have to pay a fee to take a case to arbitration. Under the Railway Labor Act, we have a government-funded arbitration process. And while that takes a little bit of time to get through, it's still effective for us because we can afford to take every case that we want. We could take a case for 3 hours overtime, even though the value might only be $100 or $120. That's usually not a thing that happens under the National Labor Relations Act because they have to pay for their arbitrator. And sometimes it'll cost $10,000 to take a case to arbitration that we can take for free. Okay, some of the other things that we have. We have a safer workplace. All the regulations that are in place, roadway worker, testing regulations for crossings, for interlockings, for everything, isn't something that the railroad said that we need to do because we want to have a safer workplace. It's stuff that your labor organization and your unions have pushed for to try and have. We have a say in what happens in our workplace. They can't just come in and cut our wages by 25% like they did to the Pullman workers. We have a process in place that says that they can't do that. And for anybody that doesn't know what a great benefit railroad retirement is, I think most people that are watching this understand that, but if not, check into it. Not too many people especially if you're a young guy, can retire at the age 60 with 30 years of service. It's a great benefit. So, how do we protect what we have? Okay? By being an active member of the BRS and working together collectively for our craft. Okay? We have to be aware of the issues and how they affect us. We have to educate our new members on being in the union. We have to protect our agreements and accomplishments. We can't just come in and say that new guy doesn't get it and he doesn't understand, so I'm not going to talk to him. We have to put our arms around him, and we have to have each other's backs, because when we do that, that's the only way we can push back. Solidarity.